Good morning. Happy
Good morning.
Friday. Hi, Chris. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Yourself?
We'll just pretend we haven't been talking for 20 minutes. Thank you for coming on today. It's really great to have you here.
You're welcome.
Say hi say hi in the chat, everybody. Anybody who's watching. I can see some people are starting to log on and watch. So I'm here today with Chris Perkins, who is the MD of Q Events. Really pleased to have you here. Q are one of our AV partners, alongside Lorna, who we do lots of work with. So it's great to have Chris here as well. Morning, Rachel. Hi, Matthew. Thanks for joining today. And it's a really juicy topic today. Will live events ever be the same again? We've all got our fingers crossed that they will be one day. Hi, Diana. Thanks for joining. Good morning. So, Chris, do you want to tell us a bit about you and your history and Q and everything? Big question.
Well, I'm a 35-year veteran of the audiovisual events industry. I sort of started in 1985 as a trainee technician at a company called iSteads, which I think is still going. From there, I moved to DRP before then going to A1 Presentations, which was the former branch manager at iSteads, Birmingham. And then from there, I moved to Gearhouse, where I stayed and worked my way up through the ranks and becoming general manager before leaving in 2001, when then Gearhouse became MCL. So Q was started as I felt that the world was changing and clients demanded more. There was they needed an event butler, an event concierge. That person that could just sort of fix things as well as the technical side of it. Could be there advising. We've got 5 hotels. What's the best one? So we'd be involved in that type of sort of consultation without being upsetting the event companies or upsetting anybody that was their job. We'd just give some valuable advice saying, well, this hotel's good for this reason, this hotel's good for that reason. We're not making any money out of it, so we've got no axe to grind. And from that was sort of a front bedroom consultancy with a few key clients that ended up with us being, pre-COVID, 22 strong out of 8,000 square feet in Birmingham, servicing majority of the football clubs, a couple of hotels in Birmingham, as well as doing a lot of large corporates for end clients, agencies, event production companies across the globe. I mean, most of my client base takes me around the world. So for the last 12 months, my suitcase has been gathering dust.
It's lovely though to be at home. You were saying
that the
dog doesn't recognise you sometimes when you come home.
Yeah, it's great to sort of come home and the dog recognises me rather than coming home and he's biting me because he thinks I'm a burglar.
How have you found the last 12 months then within Q? You've had to do a lot of pivoting, haven't you?
Incredibly tough. We've sort of taught ourselves how to take existing technology and take it into the virtual space. So how do we help our clients rethink their delivery? How do they, we as a business, we facilitate creative ideas and find technical solutions. That's our job. And from that, it's like, right, okay. In March, we did our last event the day before everything shut down at the end at the ICC. So it started with 950 and ended up closing with, I think, 190 people left in the audience. So for us was a bit bewildering to find out what's happening as everything just got cancelled. By sort of mid-May, once all the dust had settled and all the cancellations and things like that had gone through, it was like, right, how do we move forward? How long is this going to last? We don't know. So we ran a charity event using technology that we knew, and see how we could break it, what we could do with it, what it looked like, how we could stress test it. Our warehouse manager liked to muck around with, at the time, websites and various IT things. He then went off and taught himself how to create a platform that we could then sell as the virtual venue. So everything was the virtual space. We did our first event in July, and then it just sort of snowballed from there. And then everybody wanted to break it. It was like, how can we do something different? This is boring. We're doing what we're doing now. talking to our staff to get them motivated to communicate because we can't be in the office. How do we take it to the next level? So again, we had to find out new ways, and we did. And we've done some pretty exciting things. We've been involved with a team with our clients that's put together the first democratic delivery of democratic voting for a union in the virtual space with over 300-400 people. We've done our first augmented reality event. So the technology behind the Thor and Avengers and all of that, all the green screen stuff you've probably seen. We did one of those. We had a big green box in the client's warehouse in Basingstoke and had a fully tracked virtual studio. Bringing people in, walking around.
Incredible.
And if you go to, I think there's a demo of me demoing it on LinkedIn. If you check out my LinkedIn, and if you want to know any more about that, let us know. It's a journey, and we partner with all sorts of people. So again, BBC producers that are looking at things going, right, how could we deliver better so we can help our clients deliver better, both from a presentation point of view. And we've gone into the next level. So where this, as we're doing now, is become commonplace, was taking it to the next level of virtual studios. So where we've had the galleries in our warehouses in Birmingham, we've gone out to clients' venues and set green screen studios up there. We've gone into hotels. So we're running into our fourth event at the Coventry Hilton DoubleTree, where we're setting up a 10-meter green screen and there's a panel. And we've had some fun with smoke and mirrors because we can bring everybody so they look like they're sitting next to each other. But we've had to showing they're all social distanced. So they know that we're ticking the boxes and we're being safe and clever.
Yeah. Amazing. Well, it's been such a journey, well, for all of us, but pivoting to virtual is a big deal. So with everybody having to pivot to virtual over the last year, the big question, do you think that live events will ever be the same? Do you have an idea of what the industry might pan out like in the next few years?
No, they won't. We've technology and because we've been forced into it, we are really, the whole events industry has got to completely and utterly rethink itself, rethink its delivery. So some huge opportunities. Live events will be back, but they're not going to be the same. And everyone's going to think they're going to want return on investment. They're going to return on information, experience. Why are we doing this? And what are we going to get out of it? So one of our clients, we're looking at with them the whole year's worth of events, and Minister of Health makes an announcement. They can actually record a video on their website and put it up and going, well, right, guys, we're going to have a virtual event next week. We can put it together quite quickly. It's 20 minutes of a load of people's time. And that is going to create the agenda for when we meet all together face to face in Chester in June. And again, that's just going to change the thinking and the information people get out of it and the input that delegates can actually put into their events. So what they're going to get, there's going to be lots of words like takeaways are going to be bandied around and not the Deliveroo kind to sort of, more engaged. People will be more engaged in their events. They're going to play a part in the agenda and what we're going to see. So I can throw a question out there and go, right, okay, I'm sitting on a panel going, right, we're talking about the future of events with my three of my peers or various, whether we're talking to a hotel chain, a platform company, the platform being the virtual venue, the hosted place, and where everybody else fits in and what they can fit in. And again, that can be put together really quickly, so you're getting more out of your events, more takeaways.
Yeah, I do think that there feels like there's a lot more scope by including whether it's a tiny bit or a massive bit of the event being virtual or hybrid, and that the kind of possibilities feel a bit endless with it. And perhaps quite overwhelming for those people watching who've kind of stuck out to wait for in person.
Yes and no. I mean, we've got the Brexit thing to think about and how that's going to impact. We've also got the countries that aren't as fortunate as the UK with its vaccination process. So again, if you've got a speaker in Brazil, It could be 2 years before they're allowed out of the country and allowed into the country, or have got the time because of the quarantine their end, quarantine our end before they come in, that we just beam them in. Now, anybody putting a conference together 3 or 4 years ago, that was actually quite expensive. And was it really worth it? Did it outweigh the flight and the hotel accommodation to have them in a room? Now you can have your audience in the UK, and we can bring, not only can we broadcast to those countries, we can basically bring the signals in from those countries. So again, we could have the president of the United States and go, right, can you spare us 15 minutes? Well, that's more. He could probably turn more chance of him spending 15 minutes talking to you like this than the time it's going to fly, get to the hotel, the security checks.
That's definitely been something I've heard a lot, that the caliber of speakers has been greatly increased since the world went virtual, for that exact reason, because people might not have 3 days to spend for a half an hour talk in the middle of an event, but they can kind of pop on for 20 minutes and then it's done.
And where it was a dark art and it was really expensive to do it before, all of that's opened up. Technology's raced forward, the cost has come down. So to do that, it's you're talking, hundreds, maybe sort of just tipping into thousands to bring a speaker on like that, than the tens of thousands in some cases to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. If anyone's got any questions, please do fire them. Hi, Jill is listening. Hi, Becky. Lorna as well. Great to have you on. Fem, morning. Martina, good morning. Please fire over any questions or give us your opinions and thoughts about what you think might be kind of outlook over the next couple of years for us all. I agree that we're in an interesting situation with the vaccine process, because we're kind of ahead of everybody else, but it still affects our events and what clients are kind of able to do, I guess. The types of events we'll be able to have.
I mean, we've got no current guidance from the government other than everything goes back to normal in June. And there has been test events from last September. There were test events for the government working out what can be done. But there's also everyone's, people that we haven't been in a room together with lots of crowds, even, maybe 10, maybe 20. It's very strange. I mean, walking through the city centre and all of a sudden there's people. It's like, how will we cope with that? And we're in a room. Well, some people are going to go, yeah, what the hell? Others will get really uncomfortable with it. So we've got that sort of bridge to cross, first. But then once we've got through that, again, it's sort of, there's huge opportunities wherever you want to take it. I mean, the UK event industry, I think exhibition is probably the one that's going to be the slowest uptake, because again, how do you make it work? And again, with lack of government guidance at the moment, other than it all opens back up in June, hopefully.
There's large exhibitions that are supposed to be. I mean, Convex is supposed to be on 22nd and 23rd of June.
Yeah, we've got a
decision.
We've got a table booked. Yeah, we're at Delegate Wranglers. So if anyone's popping around,
I'll be coming to say hello.
Fantastic.
Becky's asking, what are clients looking to do at the moment in your experience, Chris? Are they holding off for real life, or are they happy to go hybrid?
Happy to go hybrid. We have a mix, to be honest. But a lot of clients, if you asked me this question this time last year, it was very much like no one wants to do anything, no one knows, no one really, everything is just being locked down. Now everyone realizes they've got to do something, and they've got to be prepared to do it either in the virtual space. We do have our first boots on the ground, sort of full people in the audience with a hybrid element, penciled for July. So that's a sort of but then there's a huge amount from September onwards. I mean, September onwards, and we have our first event abroad penciled in for the end of March next year. So it's sort of again, so the intent is there. We have certain clients that have gone right. We're not going back to normal events. We're staying virtual. We've got better coverage. We're getting more out of our investment on this because we're not having to have everyone out of the company for a week with all the food, the accommodation. But they're still putting in a hotel. So again, certain revenues still being made where it was traditionally. Execs still want looking after. They're still spending. Well, they've got more money to spend on wine and food. It's so we'll all get a slice of the pie, but But yeah,
And how have you found the venue and hotel response to hybrid? I know you were saying that some of them have decided that that's going to be their full business mix, and it works really well.
Yes, I mean it's difficult. The big one is infrastructure. Infrastructure is the biggest problem. So sort of from that point of view, they've
and internal support. You were saying kind of knowledge
yes.
of like the IT department.
Yeah, I mean, most of the venues we're coming across, their internet is inadequate, and their IT support, unfortunately, it was set up for traditional way of working, not how we have to work in the hybrid section. So
it's really important to differentiate IT and AV, isn't it? We were having this discussion earlier with a client, because a lot of venues have an IT department, but that's very different to being able to run virtual or hybrid events, isn't it?
Yes. So we as a rule, depending on what you're doing, but as a rule, we need a 40 megabyte connection up and down that is static IP and clean and away from everything. Hotels are looking about how their guests turn up and they have their iPhones, their iPads, their laptops all connected to it, and they don't want people really streaming and using it because it's expensive, and more people are offering it for free, so they want to get as much. They want the clients to be able to work, but not cost them a lot of money. For the events side of it, you've got to imagine that the internet is the core part of running one of these events. So from that side of things, yeah, I mean, we're taking in for a lot of hotels and clients' venues, their internet is not adequate, that we're having to take satellite trucks in, 5G bonded cards to actually get the signals out, the broadcast out, and sort of the broadcast signals in. So yeah, it's been challenging. It is very possible. I mean, venues really, if they can have somebody on staff, rather than investing money in cameras and green screens and other things, which that technology will change very quickly and is quite tough to maintain. If they focus on having somebody that understands the IT side of things from an internet point of view, a network engineer on hand, and good internet. So every room has its own. Every conference room has its own dedicated internet feed with 100 megabits up and down per second. They're laughing. It's almost unchargeable. It's one of those things. There you go. There's a way of making money and pay for itself. Going right. Well, you can have this connection for this much. This connection, because the bigger venues charge for power. So when go to an exhibition, you have to pay for your 16 amp sockets and your 32 amp sockets. Again, it's very easy to turn it up and turn it down. You can say, right, well, we can charge you for how much internet you're using, or the size of the line that you require. So there's opportunities. They just need to rethink it.
Yeah. Lorna's got some great questions about client budgets. How have you found client budgets over the last
challenging
months? Yeah.
We're having to get clients. I mean, the budgets have gone up, but we're having to get clients to rethink. They're not having to pay for a venue, so that technically plays towards the platform costs, depending on what you want to do and what analytics you want to take away from it. You're not having to pay for travel costs. You're not having to pay for people out to the office. You're not having to pay for food and beverage. You haven't got the sort of the management of time of moving all of those people around, whether employing somebody or doing it internally. So it is looking at your budgets and looking at them across the board. The other one is content. Again, we're sort of advising clients to look at their marketing budget and look at what they want to do throughout the year, and the content they're creating for this event. Does it have to be just this event? So then you get more bang for your buck out of your marketing budget. If you're creating one video, it can be used in 10 places, or one piece of information used in 10 places, or graphic design that can be repeated. You just got to change a logo or a date. Then again, that money, and once the client sort of has had a chance to, whether they're, depending on where they sit in the organization, whether they've gone back to the board and brought it to their attention and gone, well, we haven't got these costs. This is what we traditionally spent on the conference with all these hidden costs, all these extra costs, and this is what we want to spend on the virtual. Our budget goes up, but the event budget goes down.
Absolutely. And that has been one of the real difficult points with venues and hotels, in that whilst client budget might stay the same or even go up, their cut of that is hugely reduced. And
Yes.
like you're saying, they don't have to feed the delegates, they don't have to stay overnight. Like, that's all beneficial to the client budget. It's not beneficial to the hotel market, because
not to the hotels. So again, it's how hotels and venues find new ways of things to charge for,
and that comes with your strategy, and that's why the strategies have to be right.
Yeah.
To whether you offer it or not. Yeah. Matthew's asking, don't venues and hotels need both wired for AV and wireless for delegates, with platforms being the virtual venues?
Wi-Fi is, we would always want to run an event on a hardwired connection. There is an argument to say Wi-Fi is good enough, but there's a lot more can affect Wi-Fi than a hardwired connection. And by that, atmospherics affect the Wi-Fi. But yes, you are correct in other ways. When you walk into a venue, as I mentioned earlier, a delegate could have 3 devices, 100 delegates, 300 devices, and then you've got the broadcast on top of that. So yes, they do need to be kept separate. And yes, it's great if you keep delegates on the Wi-Fi and the events run on the hardwired connection.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. And along the same lines, talking about platforms, there are so many, and it's so overwhelming. And it's a question that we get asked from clients. Well, how, if I'm recommending like AV companies and people who can run hybrid, I need to recommend a platform, but it's really hard to be able to do that. What's your advice?
Do you want to
explain what the platform is to start with?
A platform is your virtual venue. So
it's literally this screen here, or Zoom or Teams.
Yeah. Although a lot of people might hate me for this comment, it is technically a website. It's a short-term website that you can put absolutely anything on. You have to consider how much do you pay for your company's website. So, but you're spreading that cost over 12 months, 5 years, 10 years, depending on what you want to do and how long your brand is going to last. You're wanting these platforms to last, days, weeks, hours. So and the big one is the more expensive ones are based more on the analytics. So what do you want to take away from it? You can do anything from having sort of a sort of Minecraft feel where you become your own avatar and you walk around, but those type of things will cost you £1 million, and there's currently a 6-month waiting list to things like Hootsuite and Hopin, which are 2 of the big boys. SpotMe's another one, but they're also event registration, so they do more than just this. If you want this, just a landing page with a secure login, some speaker bios, an agenda, some resource download, and some social media feeds, then most of the audiovisual companies now provide that as part of the offering. And it just gets branded, so it's a couple of clean pages, and you just brand it up and add the content you want quite simply. It's only
when you really delving deep into what exactly you want to get out of it and which part of the event process you want it to cover.
What are your takeaways? I mean, you can do event exhibitions, there's other things, but I mean, someone like Swapcard, they do an initial setup fee, and then you pay per delegate. And depending on what functionality you want, depends on how much you pay. That's great, but you've got 1,000 delegates. At something like £27 a delegate for that bit, it sort of wraps up really quickly. And what all of the bigger platforms don't do is the caller management, which is what we do. And in the beginning, the platform companies cut AV companies out and was like, no, we can do this. It's just Zoom. It's just this. But we've all been invited back, not just Q, but a lot of our competitors have been invited back by the platform companies, or to manage the calls, manage the speakers, manage the content. And it is I'm sitting here at my desk and I'm just looking at my screen. If we went blank now, I wouldn't know whether I was live, what was happening. If I was doing a slide presentation, I wouldn't know whether it was working, or you'd have to clunkily share my screen. We take all that away, so it just happens seamlessly.
Which is huge job in itself, but massively valuable to the client, so they know nothing's going to go wrong.
I mean, clients become a lot more acceptable that things go wrong. I mean, Vimeo, there's Vimeo, Facebook Live we're on at the moment, and a couple of others that do the streaming services. Vimeo went down for 2 days. Their servers crashed. it sort of vmix servers went down for 3 hours in the middle of a day. So but clients have become more accepting that we're going to have problems. I mean, our single point of failure, although we've got fiber and everything else, our single point of failure will be a couple of twisted copper wires in a box at the end of the road.
It's ridiculous, isn't it?
Yeah.
Matthew's got a really good question. Do you think the platform market will consolidate and just a few top ones will end up doing everything?
That's already starting to happen because they've got the edge of the market. But again, it all depends on what you want. If you want a virtual exhibition, if you want what analytics you want, and we become very data driven. So for that, yes, you will have the SpotMe's, the Swap Cards, and the Hop-ins, and maybe one or two others will sit at the top of the chain. And then again, if we want a quick event for a day or 2 day conference and we want a little bit of a resource center and a bit of social on it and some chat and maybe some polling, then most of the AV companies' basic entry level platforms will suffice.
Okay. So please fire in the chat if you've got any more questions. Last question from me. How can venues and any other people within the kind of event booking chain, we've got agents on here, event managers, how can they get in on this action?
Right. Well, we have been doing, what we're starting to see is we've been working in clients' offices. Come September, they're going to be 60-70% full. They won't be able to run those events at those offices. So the opportunity is encouraging clients to come back into venues, but there's going to be a nervousness of, oh, we're at this venue and we pay £10,000 room hire, but obviously they need the size because of the social distancing at the moment, but they're not going to be putting the people in it. So it's how do you reframe that? Infrastructure. I think the big selling point is that there are certain hotel chains that things like vMix don't work. So it's having, as we touched on earlier, having the sort of IT infrastructure understanding for virtual events, either in-house or a very good vendor that knows the venue, that becomes a selling point. Because hotels and agencies can say, right, this hotel's got this internet, does this, it's got this static IP, it's been vMix checked or vMix approved or sort of Wirecast approved. And again, a lot of these American companies, they have test things on their sites, so you can actually go to those sites and actually go, right, does our infrastructure work on this? And you just go to a website and it gives you 3 green lights and they go, fine, we're approved. We can turn around and say, hey, we are.
That's great.
vMix works our venue. We have X up and down, which means we can run event. We're confident that we could run 3 events in our hotel for 1,000 people out of each one. Even though it isn't about scale of the room holds 500. It's more about, right, okay, could I divide that room to do 250, run 2 events in there, but it's 2 events that potentially get hitting an audience of 10,000.
Yeah.
Plus, but it's having that, it's being cautious that the infrastructure that's invested in is something that can be reused if the world goes back to normal. So everything we've invested in as a company is like, right, okay, all the high-end graphics laptops that run vMix, we can recycle those to be running PowerPoint, running videos, to be media servers. The very second that people don't do this anymore. So we've got that. I'd recommend hotels do the same, but hotels should really be pushing, this is the infrastructure, we can run your virtual event, and this is why. Our internet is X.
Yeah. And then you can come to us to learn how to actually sell it into the market. Of course. Chris has got a question. Would you recommend, for event planners, would you recommend in-house AV supply or sourcing their own external ones?
I think you've got to check out their credibility. I mean, I'm obviously going to go, yeah, you want an external one because we're one, but we're also an internal one. So we sit in many camps. You need to check out the credibility. What events have they run, and what's their understanding? And it's more about, not just about the technology is going right. It's their understanding of how that,
and
how
their
that should be done.
service.
Yeah. And each market sector's got a different requirement, and different requires of management. From financial people to there's other things. Security is the other one. It's an understanding of going, right, okay, have you got cyber essentials? Do you or the IS or the equivalent ISO? It's sort of like, how do you manage the data? Again, what are your credentials of running virtual events and hybrid events? What have you done?
Yeah. Also, I think in terms of event planners who are on commission basis, that's going to have to come to play a bit in their decision as well, because a lot of them, that's their only income is commission, and therefore if they're going with AV suppliers that are offering commission purely to the venue, then they just don't get paid for it. So it's an interesting conversation. We are running a selling hybrid events specifically for event agents in a couple of weeks through the HBAA, if anybody is interested in tapping into the hybrid market. Thank you, Chris. Lovely to have you on. It was good fun.
Problem. Thank you for the invite.
No problem. Next week, we have a social media challenge run by Becky, who is our social guru, starting on Monday every morning for 5 days. She's going to be going live on a closed Facebook group to go through all things social. And then the week after that, we've got our LinkedIn challenge, which I'm doing. So lots of cool stuff coming up. Thank you so much. Have a great weekend. See you later.
Bye.